Hi, it's Tacticus again. Today we're going to explore what I deem the perfect roster. Let me preface this by saying that this is a game, and you should play it however you enjoy it. Will this be your perfect roster too? Probably not. And in games, there is no universal truth. What I aim to do in this video is rather to inspire you to think about what's important to you in this game, and to think about aspects of characters you didn't think of before. What do I define as the perfect roster? I try to mold a roster that's useful for all game modes. The Swiss Army knife of rosters, so to say. First off, I want them to be able to beat the campaigns. I want at least one good guild raid team, and we need to keep an eye out on their traits, so we have at least one good character for each situation. While the first two requirements for a roster will be pretty straightforward and be explored while we're looking at the traits, those will need a really close look. We want to have one character as a carry for each relevant trait to be able to climb as high as possible in legendary release events. Those are endgame content and will really test your roster, and only investing in the characters you really need will mean being able to hit more requirements. You can get away with less investment than I'll be doing, and you can do a lot more. Is having at least 3 characters for each trait an advantage? Of course, but that would mean more energy too. If you're new here or come back regularly and haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It really helps me out. If you haven't used the referral code yet, I'd also be delighted if you used mine, bet60ado, for 100 Blackstone for you, and various rewards depending on level milestones you hit for me. We're going to try to avoid investment in too many characters. Of course, having all characters at Diamond 3 would be optimal, but that's hardly doable. If you want to know it exactly, if you spend 410 Blackstone on energy per day and have all nodes unlocked, it will take you around 2360 days for the characters in-game right now. Well, that's 6.5 years, and not regarding any new characters coming out. It's not really feasible. Because of this, I won't look at quests in this video. Those have pretty erratic requirements sometimes, and only need 3 characters to fulfill them in some levels. That would mean I'd need to recommend you to have one character per faction for every requirement the quest could possibly ask for. That would come close to building everything. How much do we invest in characters? It comes to the old question of wide versus tall. I much enjoy discussing the game with Carnage of Tacticus Planner fame. He's working on a video, Tall but a Little Wide, and I think it's brilliant. Watch it here if it's already out and you like such content. I'm going to go the opposite way. Wide but a little tall. Where's my roster at? I personally have achieved an all gold 1 roster now. Was that sensible? Probably not. You can celebrate this occasion with me with the code FuchsLovesGold on screen, which will help you build your characters further. Just for the fun of it, a roster this wide cost me 485,990 energy. On screen you can see how much power the average character, already including the 3 known custodies, has at the appropriate power levels. As rarity, I always pick the minimum rarity a character will have at that level, which means that legendary characters were legendary for Stone 1 as well, but common characters were calculated as common for Stone 1, but as legendary for Diamond 1, as you need that. Having all 94 characters programmed into the game right now, not including equipment, a full gold roster would be 3,157,510 power. That's level 53 for reference. Not looking at specific characters, but just the average, that could have gotten me just over 30 characters to Diamond 3. In that case, all others would be Stone 1, which is pretty unrealistic. Just going for 30 Diamond 3 characters, with let's say all abilities to 44, just before they become really expensive, would get you 7,875,746 power. Level 57, almost 58. That's a steep difference. From a power level viewpoint, building tall is definitely more effective for the same energy. If I used the same energy to get every character to silver 1 instead of gold 1, I could have built nearly 19 additional characters to diamond 3. That would be 5,567,469 power, level 55 and a half. If you only aim for diamond 1, you could have a full silver roster with 30 characters at diamond 1, being 4,870,368 power for level 54, close to level 55, assuming the same ability level of 44 for each diamond 1 character. Not only would that still leave us with a pretty decent roster with plenty of choice for guild wars, but also a broad choice of silver characters for legendary release events and quests, and most importantly, all campaign characters at silver at least, so I could actually start dabbling in the elite campaigns, which is of course integral for all my energy calculations. So yes, you're never going to be just as effective as the way building there is more expensive. 19 diamond 3 characters would also get you the top 2 guild raid teams with a lot of characters to exchange in, depending on the guild boss. Silver seems to be the sweet spot for me personally, although I have everything at gold. I can't reset them all, and I enjoy getting high in legendary events with them. You have to choose your baseline yourself, depending on how much energy you spend and how long you want to wait. While my investment seems to be a bit over excessive and ineffective, I got Khan to blue star with that roster, and I managed to get Dante in the first event. So it is a valid playstyle, although it doesn't lend itself too well to guild raids. So for now I want a broad baseline and upgrade some characters that stick out. They don't necessarily have to be diamond 3 for some of those purposes. For example, the campaign carries don't need to be just there. But doing that would mean I don't have to invest in more characters I didn't have any investment in before. I have all 3 mandatory campaign characters at gold, so they wouldn't keel over immediately. The carry for each campaign I will put to diamond 1. As a carry it will have some merit at least, and I personally could only finish Octarius and Samhain Mirror with 3 stars in every level, with only having all characters at gold 1. The diamonds I'll add will probably help too with the other campaigns. So only the 6 carries of campaigns not finished by me with them on gold 1 will be put to diamond. This will already tick off a lot of boxes for trades later. Now first I'm going to have to explain my method. I used the Tacticus planner to sort out all characters in game by their number of hits, traits and attack characteristics. I also included forced summons, because while it isn't really a trait, we have seen the opposite of it before. No summons is a pretty common requirement. Some units cannot help but summon their friends. Think Akimatos, who just can't keep his demons in the warp. Some traits haven't seen any use yet, and for some there are only a few characters. But only having exactly 5 characters doesn't stop Snowprint from including those traits in events. Even it's a faction trait, as we experienced with Dante's event, which included a requirement of bringing the 5 orcs with their guts stuck in. So I'll ignore traits with less than 5 characters so far, but every other thing is fair game and I'll invest in it. A huge thank you to Clipastra, who I got a lot of the images for traits and weapons from, and as always to the Tacticus planner for that awesome tool that makes my job easier. Since we know that faction traits are fair game, those are Act of Faith, Ambush, Blessings of Khorne, Contagions of Nurgle, Let the Galaxy Burn, Living Metal, Martial Qatar, Shadow in the Warp, Synapse, and Weaver of Faith. With a name like faction traits, you'd expect exactly 5 characters to have them. But, well, the Patermime actually dies when you kill him, and not every Tyranid is a Synapse creature or has Shadow in the Warp, so we can exclude those from investing. I'll also exclude Martial Qatar for now. I pretty much speculate we get at least one Sister of Silence, and since those don't have the Martial Qatar rule on tabletop, we can rule that out too. let's see which other traits there are. There are a lot. There's Beast Slayer, Big Target, Camouflage, Close Combat Weakness, Crushing Strike, Demon, Deep Strike, Explodes, Final Vengeance, Flying, Gravis, Healer, Heavy Weapon, Indirect Fire, Infiltrate, Mechanic, Mechanical, Overwatch, Parry, Psyker, Rapid Assault, Resilient, Suppressive Fire, Terminator Armor, Terrifying, Unstoppable, and Vehicle. I feel a bit like in my crafted upgrades video listing all of those. We can once again remove the traits with less than 5 characters. There might come more characters later on, but with the Custodes out of the bag, we have at least a month before we need to revisit this video, so I feel it will hold up quite well. So out are Demon, Explodes, Gravis, Indirect Fire, Mechanic and Vehicle. The game also likes to sort characters by attack characteristics, their number of hits and their attack type. For number of hits, we had a lot of requirements before, from max 1 hit to max 4 hits, and from minimum 2 hits to minimum 5 hits. Maximum hits ranging from 1 to 4, minimum hits ranging from 2 to 6, melee only and ranged only. Ranged only actually means characters with a ranged attack additionally to their mandatory melee attack. While we're at attack characteristics, there are, by order of alphabet, Bolter, Blast, Bio, Chain, Direct, Energy, Eviscerate, Flame, Heavy Round, Lass, Molecular, Melter, Physical, Psychic, Piercing, Power, Particle, Plasma, Projectile, Pulse, and Toxic. We can exclude Bio, Energy, Lass, Molecular, Melter, Particle, Projectile, and Pulse for now, as those have 4 or fewer characters available to them. We can definitely break down our requirements further though. We could try to get 1 character of each requirement for every alliance in the game, but that would only be required for quests. Imagine you invested in Thaddeus for minimum 3 hits, and suddenly the game tells you only to use Space Marines. It is certainly not perfect, but I'm pretty confident doing it the legendary event way and just trying to have everything fulfilled for always 2 alliances together will be enough for most appliances. I told you we can't do everything. Doing that will definitely cut down the required traits further, as some are just not possible. If they only become impossible in 1 constellation, we know that the characters we have to build with that requirement need to be from that alliance. We can't build Vindicta, be overjoyed we can use her in the No Xenos track, and suddenly hit a wall in the No Imperium track. Let's have a look. Cutting Chaos means we can't have the healer trait anymore. Suppressive Fire and Terminator Armor also go the way of the dodo. Eviscerate, Flame, Heavy Round and Toxic are also out. Of course, the faction traits also become impossible, but since you can only invest in characters of 1 alliance anyways there, that's no problem. For all of those, we thus have to invest in a Chaos character. Excluding Xenos lets us skip minimum 4 hits and everything above that: Beast Slayer, Big Target, Camouflage, Close Combat Weakness, Crushing Strike, Healer, Infiltrate, Overwatch, Suppressing Fire, Direct Damage, Eviscerate, Heavy Round and Toxic. That's quite a few. If we were to find any requirements that aren't possible when cutting any of the alliances, we can actually skip that one outright. Skipping the Imperium means we can further cut down the requirements of Beast Slayer, Camouflage, Crushing Strike, Deep Strike, Final Vengeance, Healer, Heavy Weapon, Overwatch, Parry, Rapid Assault, Suppressive Fire, Unstoppable, Bolter, Blast, Chain, Direct, Plasma and Toxic. All of those traits need us to invest in an Imperial character. And we have our first bingo, since some of the requirements are so rare and spread out between alliances that we won't be able to do legendary event tracks for Toxic, Suppressive Fire and Healer at all. That's less than I would have hoped for. We can also deduct that a minimum 4 hits, big target, close combat weakness, infiltrate characters need to be Xenos, Beast Slayer, Camouflage, Crushing Strike, Overwatch and direct damage need to be either Xenos or Imperial, as they are only possible in the No Chaos track, Deep Strike, Final Vengeance, Heavy Weapon, Parry, Rapid Assault, Unstoppable, Bolter, Blast, Chain and Plasma need to be Imperial characters, Heavy Round and Eviscerate need to be either Xenos or Chaos, and Flame and Terminator armor aren't feasible without Chaos, so it should be one of their characters. There's no overlap between Chaos or Imperium. They either can do it individually or not at all, which nicely and probably accidentally fits the lore. All other traits and requirements we can fulfill with whomever. Or at least I thought so in the first few goes at the script. Yes, you can choose whoever. But while editing I realized that if that one character was excluded, I'd have no one, so only investing in 2 characters from different alliances for the other thing goes straight will ensure we never come up short. This means we need 2 characters for melee only, ranged only, maximum 1 hit, flying, mechanical, psyker, resilient, terrifying, physical, psychic, piercing and power. I'll see how well my initial draft holds up and will change around and add stuff wherever necessary. Mistakes happen, but it drives me up the wall. You can't imagine how many tables I already did. I cut down minimum 2 to minimum 5 hits, as minimum 6 will always fulfill that, and also cut maximum 2 to 4 hits, as max 1 hit will fulfill that just fine. We are now down to 43 requirements to fulfill, from 71 I found out in the beginning. 42 really, as we can cut out forced summons, as it's rather an anti-requirement, and we'll have enough characters that can live without summoning. Direct damage also never came up before, but 42 is a nice number, and we'll just keep that. Whereas before the characters with the most boxes checked were 12, especially because of the inflation of the hit requirements, now the most requirements met is Typhus with 9. The average character has 5 traits of the good list he fills. The most ordinary character is Creed. He has no traits, no especially high or low number of hits, and just has his less weapon profile, which doesn't even matter, and melee only. Poor old Creed. I feel better not having him yet now. For our first try at a good roster for every occasion, I go Sodoku style, as you know it from legendary event videos. I can't show you the whole table though, as it doesn't fit on screen. This is a rough draft, so you can see what I want to go for. We'll refine it further later on. Indulge me for a moment. Let's pick out the carries for our campaigns. We skip Octarius and Samhain Mirror, as I was able to complete them with only gold characters. You don't need to go diamond there. This means I'll heavily invest in Angrax, Burkhard, Bellator, Thaddeus, Aleph Null and Eltreon. I know, neither Eltreon nor Thaddeus are that good in LRE, but Eltreon has some appliances in guild raids still, and while others hate Thaddeus, hi unappreciator, I like that video, from the train wreck that is the Astra Militarum, I'd still feel best investing in him. Now, with those characters chosen, we can tick off melee only, ranged only, minimum 6 hits, crushing strike, let the galaxy burn, living metal, terminator armor, bolter and blast. Flying, mechanical, psyker, piercing, psychic and power have 1 mark checked, but need another character later. Only 32 requirements left, making good progress. We could try to see which are the fewest characters to fill out the remainder, but to be honest, I'd rather go for at least one guild raid team to actually invest into something worthwhile. I personally have Revas and Exeter Row built to Diamond 3, so I will go with the mechanical team first. I know, the multi-hit team is better in some instances, the Neurotrope might come back now it has been buffed, and the Exorcist comes out, and there's also the idea of a one-hit team, with all the one-hit characters, Toriad and the Custodes, might also have some legs. But I'll build the two biggest ones, mechanical and multi-hit. For the mech team I need to build Vitruvius, Actus, Tan, Ro, Show and Revas to be up for every challenge. That will get rid of max one hit, big target, camouflage, close combat weakness, mechanical, flying, unstoppable, direct damage, heavy round and power. Physical and piercing also only need one more character. While Revas has flame and Ro has infiltrate, those only work in one constellation without one other faction, so I keep them on my to-do list. Only 23 to go. Gulgorts, Etana and Helprecht can also occasionally be used in a mech team, depending on the boss you're facing. They also work well with the multi-hit team, but are not the most important members for both of those, so I'll push them back a tad. For a proper multi-hit team, we need Karn, Dante, Ragnar, Kalgar, Snotflogger and Ornshi. Eltron and Bellator we already have. That makes Beast Slayer, Blessings of Khorne, Deep Strike, Final Vengeance, Get Stuck In, Rapid Assault, Chain and Eviscerate available. Piercing is now also checked off, and Physical and Terrifying only needs one other character. There's only 13 traits we can't yet cater to. From the side characters for the two teams we've already building, Gulgorts, Etana and Helprecht, only Helprecht possesses a quality we need, parry, so let's build him too. The others take or leave. But for the purpose of this video, they aren't as important anymore. Sorry Gulgorts, I love you. The Weaver of Fate and Contagions of Nurgle traits only have the 5 characters within the faction available. The Death Guard left have each 2 traits left over, all have Contagions of Nurgle and Resilient, but Typhus also has Psyker and Psychic. From all 42 useful traits, Typhus has the most, 9. Rodbone has 4 and all others 5. Originally, I chose Rodbone here as a useful healer, and as he can get Psychis from the 1000 Suns, I'll still do that. We still need one character for Resilient. For the 1000 Suns, Yasagor and Toth have only one trait we still need, the others have 4. In total all of them have 7, but Toth with 5 and Apraxas with 6 have less. But of course, we all know that Apraxas is best. Should you ever start building the Neurotrope, he's probably the second most important character. Could be argued really. Apraxas it is, and Weaver of Fate and Flame damage sorted, as well as Psyker and Psychic. Act of Faith only has the Sororitas left, and I'm going to pick Isabella so I can withstand enemies in legendary events longer. For Heavy Weapon and Overwatch we have 7 characters each. As Heavy Weapon needs to be Imperial, Calandis and Morgan don't count. Only 5. Sarkoel, Barakiel, Certus, Vindictor or Sidejax. I could do a meme here. Certus actually has all 3 traits we're still missing. But we all know he isn't good. Sarkoel is the better Certus and ticks Heavy Weapon and Overwatch, as well as being an Imperial Plasma character. I was just kidding with Certus. We need a Xenos character with Infiltrate anyways, so Certus is out. And if it wasn't, we'd already have an Infiltrate character in Exeter Row. So Infiltrate Xenos only. Can only be done with the Pater Mine, Darkstrider and Shadow Sun, Shane Sar and the Death Leaper. The Death Leaper also has Terrifying and checks that box, so he's in. Not the cream of the crop here. We only need a second Resilient character that's not Chaos. From those, Lucian and Carian seem to be the most useful, with 7 or 8 traits each. As Lucian is already out, we'll take him. To be honest, changing this after the fact wasn't as bad, as I only had to swap the Pater Mine with the Death Leaper and add Lucian after the fact. With those characters, We have all traits taken care of and will always have at least one character at Diamond for every occasion. 25 characters. Not bad. I could have actually built that with the energy I spent so far. Everyone to Diamond 1 and still have everyone else at Silver 1. It's a hard reality for me. Would have been a bit better probably. At this point of the process, I started to have ambition. How low would I be able to get? Not doing teams, not taking healers, not looking at how good characters are. Will it help? I'll start with the traits that have the smallest amount of characters again, which avoids having only characters with one trait left in the end. The faction traits once again have the least characters, so I'll have to try to tackle them first. Typhus is the one character out of all that checks the most boxes with 9 traits. After that, the characters that tick the most boxes, including one faction trait each, are Mataneo, Azrael, Karian, Certus and Gulgords. I could watch for the one with the rarest traits, but I go by usefulness instead. Let's pick Gulgords. Karian still checks 8 boxes, so I'll pick him. Now the decision becomes harder, with 7 characters being tied for 5 boxes checked. I will just take one with a faction trait, which is Hagen. Whenever I looked for most requirements, I now ignored characters of a faction that already had that requirement filled. So for Hagen I would now ignore all terrifying characters that were chaos, as I need one from another alliance. Our next tie of Azrael, Sakael and Shadow Sun brings with it the rare close combat weakness, so that's Shadow Sun. Sakael still has a lot to offer, so he's in too. Next is Morven with Blast, Bolter, Mechanical and Act of Faith. A 6 character draw with 2 requirements each gets decided by Toth for his faction trait. Mephiston gets rid of Terrifying, Psyker and Psychic for good. Immospec has minimum 6 hits and Living Metal. Ro brings Unstoppable and direct damage. Mesa ticks off Physical and Blessings of Corn. From now on, it's slim pickings, with our pick of a Deep Strike and a Chain character. Nicodemus is a healer, so I prefer him, and Mataneo is generally good, so he's in for Deep Strike. That makes our list 14 characters. Before considering needing to double down on some of the traits, it was 13, and I deem this is not too bad. You can actually build the ultimate tall roster for legendary events with just 14 characters. You won't do good in guild raids, won't necessarily do well in campaigns, but have an answer for most things in legendary events. It was pretty much poking around at that point, and I needed a more mathematically sound approach. You know me, I love numbers and statistics. For that I calculated the percentage of fighters each trait represents. I wanted that as a scale on how valuable a fighter is, just on their characteristics. For that I removed every trait from fighters that didn't matter anymore. For example, as I laid out, that track with Infiltrate without Xenos would be impossible. Ro is a cool character, but him having Infiltrate doesn't matter for our LRE-centric view. That's why I want to invest in a Xenos character and not an Imperial one for that, and thus didn't count any characters but Xenos with that trait. This pushes the average traits per character down to 4.53. I assigned a point value to each trait by just inverting the percentage of characters with the ability. If every character had that trait, the character gets only 1 point for having it. If only a single character has it, it gets 94 points. In theory, if only one character has the trait, I wouldn't count it either way. The least number of characters that have a trait needed from their faction, since it's impossible without them, is 4 and gives a score of 23.5 for that. Those are minimum for hits, big target, deep strike, chain and plasma. The least important ones are melee only for 1.92 points on 49 out of 94 characters, and ranged only for 2.09 points on 45 characters. Wanna see something scary? I have no idea how to put it into a table simpler than this, but to do a step in between, which I didn't want. So this is Jane Zar's calculation. Took some time to type out. Coming in at exactly 1.92 points is Creed for an unsurprising last place. This shifts the perspective in the higher echelons though. While possessing a lot of traits, Typhus only makes place 15, as none of his traits are quite as unique. And that's even with the faction trait taken into account, which do give 18.8 points each. Let's have a quick look at the top 10 for fun. Gulgurts brings the most points, having a blend of a lot of useful traits in 7, combined with rare traits as Eviscerate, Crushing Strike or Big Target. Barakiel also crushes it in place 2, which was really surprising for me, as I like Barakiel in any case. With a bigger leap of 8 points in difference comes Azrael. That's one I probably wouldn't have guessed. Revas in place 4 shows why he's good in LIE. Not only does he come off often, but rarely has an easy replacement. Place 5 is Mataneo, followed by Smasher, Sakael, Toth and Morgan. Finishing off the list is Dante, with close to 70 trait points. Does this say anything about the total qualities of those characters? Not at all. Being technically useful in an event doesn't translate well into being actually useful. Look at Tiag. In the Charger and LIE, he's quite useful just by traits. But is he good? Nah. Every time I get traits checked off, I remove them from the table for good. That means the rating of characters will shift and give me the next most valuable character, depending on the boxes still unchecked. It was a pretty manual process. Programmers will laugh at me, but worked out well and gave me Gulgurts, Azrael, Thoth, Shadow Sun, Dante, Typhus, Lucian, Harkin, Ragnar, Immuspec, Vindicta, Neurotrope, any Blessing of Korn character, let's pick Karn, any Imperial Parry character, the most valuable of which would be Karian, but you can do Jäger, he's currently available and the second best. That's 14 again, so my crackshot theory wasn't as bad. But this time the characters have more traits each, which should make events a little easier. I challenge you to find less with the same characteristics. Still can't say it's an effective team. Of course, I also want to see how not including requisition only characters will shift that, as those are very luck dependent. I at least want to deduct unfarmable characters. Legendary characters you can farm are fair game, I think, because we're talking about such a large time frame, you can expect to farm them in this time. Morven will take quite the time, but wasn't essential before. That's 68 characters you can realistically be expected to have. When playing for a long time, that is, but even if you missed all release events. It's unrealistic in some extent, as you'll have pulled some of the unavailable characters by the time you pulled that off. Some faction traits also become pretty much unattainable, or at least not viable to fight with, but we'll build them wherever possible, just for later, when we can utilize them. This also rapidly changes trait points, as you only have a few characters available you can build right now. The average character only possesses 3.23 useful traits now. Characters removed seem to be some of the more useful ones. Remember, the traits get more valuable because less characters have them on average, so of course the numbers could get higher. Who's top dog now? It's Ragnar, fittingly, followed by Gulgurts, Azrael, Sakael, Deathleaper, Ro, Smasher, Shadow Sun, Revas and Maladus. Let's take the characters by their values and just go down the list. In case of a draw, I look at the basic list who's more valuable generally. As discussed, whenever I take someone out from the list with the traits, the value might shift around. Ragnar is first, followed by Gulgurts. I'll spare you the details this time, we end up with Ragnar, Gulgurts, Morwen, Deathleaper, Sakael, Maladus, Njal, Ahriman, Revas, Harken, Yarick, Macer, and a heavy round, parry, and living metal character each, as well as a non-chaos piercing one. Let's just pick Toth, Toriad, Aleph, and Etana for the deep strike as well. 16 characters that tick off every single requirement and not regarding luck dependent characters? That's quite good, I'd reckon. It even checks off deep strike for all constellations, although you might not be able to actually field 3 characters in a no chaos deep strike team. What is my personal perfect roster that I'll aim for the next month? For now, I'll start with only the mech team, as well as adding Revas as a buddy to Aleph, Rodbone for Maladus, and Isabella for Burkhard, so we have the LRE power couples too. When all requirements fail, having a tank and a healer that fits it can be a powerful boon to just push events for kill points, and they're useful in things like survival too. The rest I'll determine with my points scale. Can it bring the total down? Angrax, Burkhard, Bellator, Thaddeus, Aleph Null and Eltion I'll take for the campaigns, and because we already invested in them to gold probably anyways. So the next steps are cheaper comparatively. I'll drop Thaddeus since he's just not as good and doesn't check a lot of boxes, and add Rodbone and Isabella. Revas is already in the raid team, which also adds Vitruvius, Actus, Tan, Ro and Sho. 13 characters down already, but those are ones I really care about and that have applications for other stuff than just legendary release events, so this will be good investment in any case. 21 boxes checked. Let's just fill out the rest as cheaply as possible. So we add Dante, which will be good for the multi-hit team eventually, Gulgurts, because I need to take an orc at some point, and despite Smasher being quote-unquote better, I really don't want to take him, and Gulgurts already has some campaign investment. I get my choice of the Thousand Suns and pick up Raxas, since he's great and already invested in again. Sakael is useful for several traits too. Ragnar is a good character for the eventual multi-hit team and still checks 2 boxes. Karn only checks Blessings of Khorne, and Asgore would get me terrifying. As the only alternative would be Harken, I will take Asgore. I know still lack an infiltrate character, and Darkstrider, as bad as he is, gets me infiltrate, as well as my second needed physical. I'll build him last and cross my fingers for a rework. Karian I'll build as soon as he comes out as well. This will finish the list and give me every trait, the ones that are necessary even twice. This is 21 characters total, utilizing the investment I already have in campaign characters for the elite campaigns, building the mech team, has decent healing synergies, and the only things I would have to ponder is whether I want to build Karn after all and exchange Darkstrider for 2 other characters. My first attempt with my mistake still in place, I was more confident in the team, but it actually also had exactly 21 characters to build. This gives me something to do again after now actually getting every fighter to gold 1. This will occupy me, with my personal roster right now, for another 81,750 energy to get to Diamond 1 each, which will take around half a year with the 50 Blackstone refill and not considering chests, quests and so on. So now I've got a plan. I think after that I'll upgrade the mech team to all Diamond 3, which will then cost me another 19,670 energy. Another 1.5 months. Thereafter, I just go for the multi-hit team. If there isn't a new meta, and if a new character that comes out won't push any requirement to 5 characters, which would mean I'd need to invest in it again. This actually makes me more excited for new character events. It's an aspect of characters only rarely discussed. How future-proof is my roster? I don't think Ambush, Shadow in the Warp or Synapse will ever become requirements, as they are faction traits of complete factions that don't have 5 characters. Martial kata is also very unlikely to get added as a requirement. That means that there's currently 17 existing traits, could potentially become LRE requirements in the future. The explored roster already fulfills Demon, Explodes, Gravis, Healer, Mechanic, Suppressive Fire, Energy, Molecular, Melter, Particle, Projectile, Pulse and Toxic. Only 4 traits would warrant any further investment in the future. Indirect Fire, Vehicle, Bio and Las. Indirect Fire only has 1 character at the moment, Vehicle is also only 1, Las has 2 and Bio 3. With us knowing some of the next characters in the Custodes already, I don't think any of those very specific traits will become used very often in the near future, which leads me to think the system is pretty future-proof. And hey, maybe I need to invest in Thaddeus soon after all. He has 2 of those. I hope this video gave you some perspective or ideas for your future team building. How do you build your roster? Do you build it tall or wide? What do you think of this little thought experiment? Let me know in the comments and have a wonderful day.